I could lose an eye, but imagine the pop.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Imagine the Pop Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Matty B, and I've just got to dive straight in this week. This week's episode of Monday Night Raw was incredible. There wasn't any big name surprises. In fact, a lot of the biggest names weren't there at all. There was no Seth Rollins, no CM Punk, no Drew McIntyre, no Becky Lynch, and Cody Rhodes really only made a cameo, to be honest. Instead, this was essentially the mid-card show, but in the best way possible, because this was a show where the mid-card stepped up and showed off. Now, for those that aren't familiar with certain wrestling terms, the mid-card is essentially the second-tier players, the filler before the bigger stars show up. But for WWE, their roster is so stacked that their mid-card features former main eventers, former world champions, and a roster that is so deep and so good at the minute that almost anyone could step up into that main event spot when called. And that's exactly what they all did on this week's Raw. But enough of me talking about it, let's actually talk about it as we recap Monday Night Raw. Now, for all my talk of the mid-card, one of the company's biggest stars in Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley came out to start the show with a shocking and sad announcement. Rumours had broken earlier in the day to suggest that Rhea was injured and would need to vacate the women's title, and that's exactly what happened. Rhea announced that the backstage attack from Liv Morgan last week was the reason for this, and she vowed to destroy whoever was holding her title when she returned. Now, this is obviously really unfortunate and genuinely wish Rhea a speedy recovery, but there's also a lot of opportunity here. Rhea has just beaten Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. She spent a year running through all challengers, including Nia Jax, and she beat Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39 as well. There was no real danger for her, no one outside of Bianca Belair and now Jade Cargill, but they were both WrestleMania level matches. So what was Rhea Ripley really going to do for the next year anyway? As sad as this is, I actually think there are at least three big benefits to this. Number one, Rhea loses the title without actually losing it is a great opportunity for the rest of the women's roster to step up. Number two, Liv Morgan injuring Rhea makes her look incredibly dangerous and a credible challenger. And then number three, Rhea Ripley will get the biggest babyface pop when she returns in a few months. So whilst we wish Rhea a speedy recovery, I'm also really excited to see what we're going to get from that women's division over the next few months. Next up, we had the first of several fantastic matches on this week's Raw as the returning Sheamus for Ivar one-on-one. Now, Sheamus has been away for over 8 months, but looks like he hadn't skipped a beat with an awesome white noise from the top rope on the giant Ivar, and then eventually getting the win. After the break, Triple H then came out to congratulate the new Raw Tag Team Champions, The Miz and R-Truth, on their win from WrestleMania. But that wasn't all. He actually came out to present them with new World Tag Team title belts, based on the same big gold design as the men's and women's world titles. Now, The Miz and R-Truth were fantastic as always, whipping up the crowd and getting them ready for the following tag team number one contender match that would see DIY, the Creed brothers, and the New Day fight it out to be that new number one contender. Now, just in case you're going to start thinking that I'm exaggerating by saying that every match was really good and delivering praise on every match this episode, well, this one literally did receive "This is awesome" chants from the crowd, as everyone had a chance to shine, from Julius Creed delivering multiple suplexes like the next Brock Lesnar, to a great sequence to end the match involving all 6 men from all 3 teams. One of my personal faves, DIY, ultimately got the win, and so I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing some fantastic TV over the next few weeks. DIY, R-Truth and The Miz, they've been in and around each other for the last few months. They've been comedy gold, they've been fantastic, so I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing what they get up to. Now, as you probably know, Raw is a 3-hour show, which makes a rapid recap like this really difficult unless we fast forward through a few bits. So here are some of the other highlights from the night. First, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell beat Ivy Nile and Maxine Dupree in a women's tag team match, with Indy starting to take on some of Candice's way of doing things with cheating for the win. Then Dirty Dom took on Andrade in another great match that reminded us just how good Andrade can be when he's given the chance. Andrade picked up the win before Ricochet needed to run down and break up a double team that was coming from Dirty Dom and JD McDonough, probably setting up some kind of tag team. Next, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven picked up a rare tag team win over former champions Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. It was a fun match that saw Chelsea Green get the pin in her home country of Canada. And then Cody Rhodes did make that brief appearance to talk to Jey Uso before Jey took on Finn Balor in what was another solid match. I know I keep emphasizing how good the matches were this week, but for those who were new or recent to WWE, believe me, it's not always been like this. There used to be a lot of short, low quality filler matches outside of the big pay-per-view events. So what we're seeing right now on TV, week in and week out, is genuinely worth celebrating. But to wrap up the highlights, Jey and Finn had another good match before Jey ultimately took the win with a spear followed by an Uso splash. The Judgment Day then tried to attack Jey to soften him up before he ultimately goes on to face Damian Priest for that world title, but he managed to escape through the crowd, and this set up one of the best entrances on Raw of all time. I'm not exaggerating, genuinely one of the best. So as we move on to the main event, the camera follows Jey up the steps and out of the arena, where he meets Sami Zayn waiting outside. Now, this arena in Montreal is special for Sami. It's practically his hometown, it's where he saw his first ever wrestling event, and it's where he tragically lost his world title shot to Roman Reigns at last year's Elimination Chamber. So, Sami said he wants to enter tonight just the way that he did for his first ever show, and the camera that has stayed with Jey all the way up the steps and all the way outside then stays with Sami with no cuts all the way back through the main auditorium and then into the main arena with all the fans. Now this is a hometown crowd for Sami, so the fans are going crazy and Sami takes it all in. He grabs a Canadian flag, he goes around all the different seating areas on the floor and then finally makes his way to the ring. Again, if you're new to WWE, these long one-shot camera moves in and out of the arena with special entrances, this is a recent development. This level of filmmaking for this weekly TV show isn't the norm. So again, it's a real treat to behold. And so on to the main event, and I'm not exaggerating, and I know I sound like a stuck record, but genuinely, definitely, when I say that Sami and Chad Gable put on a classic in the main event that was easily a contender for match of the year, you genuinely just have to believe me. WWE has put the entire match in full on their YouTube channel. So if you do have a spare 20 minutes, I highly recommend that you go and watch it. Sami and Chad Gable basically gave us a WrestleMania level match on a weekly episode of Raw. Nothing I can say can really do it justice, so I'll just say that in an even match that went backwards and forwards, Sami managed to find a way to get the win with a haluva kick, despite a bad leg that Gable had been working on the entire match. At the end, Sami and Gable then showed great mutual respect, raising each other's arms in the ring. But then as Sami went over to celebrate with his family in the front row, Gable attacked Sami with a German suplex on the outside, literally pulling him out of his wife's arms to give him that suplex, before tying him up in another ankle lock, but this time in between the turnbuckles, so it caused Sami even more pain and it led to him finally tapping out just as Raw went off the air. Now, Chad Gable is a fan favourite, and especially over the last year, he has had so many good matches, and there has been such a push for him to win the Intercontinental title and to have beaten Gunther. There was a little disappointment before Mania when it looks like Sami Zayn was the one chosen to beat Gunther, and everyone was a bit concerned what was going to happen with Gable. He missed WrestleMania weekend as well. But this was such a great finish to the show, and it's such an exciting development for Gable. After so many missed opportunities over this last year, he's finally snapped, and we're going to see this whole new side of him, which I can't wait to see. What a show. Who needs CM Punk and Seth Rollins? Who needs Drew McIntyre? Seriously though, this was a great showcase for Raw talent, especially for those who didn't get the moments they maybe thought they deserved at WrestleMania this last weekend. As always, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of Imagine the Pop Wrestling Podcast. You can find us across all social media platforms at Imagine the Pop, and I look forward to doing this all again at the weekend for Friday Night SmackDown.